Hello again and welcome to Along the Rock, our podcast that pays homage to the people of the Sauk Valley and the river that runs through it. I'm Mark Morris, your host, and joining me today is Tess Schaefer, who is from this area originally, from the Sterling Rock Falls area, but has been out of the area for quite some time, and we're kind of going back into her history a little bit because her avocation, I guess you could say, was as a foreign exchange student. So just tell us a little bit about your past, if you will.
Yeah, so I am from Rock Falls, Illinois here, and I went to Rock Falls High School, and through Rock Falls High School, I got involved with the Rotary Club here in Rock Falls and went to Denmark on foreign exchange during my junior year of high school. I actually knew about the program when I was just a kid. I had met a different foreign exchange student, or a student who was a Rock Falls student who had gone on exchange to Finland and came back and was telling me about it when I was in maybe third grade. So I remember walking up to my mom and telling her, like, oh, that kid was an exchange student. I'm gonna do that when I'm in high school. And I actually just heard them announce over the intercom before school one day, any students interested in going on foreign exchange, come to the library. We are having a meeting right now. And I went to the meeting and the rest just kind of fell into place.
So it's that simple as long as your parents are on board.
Yes, so it was a little more complicated, I guess. We did have to go through an interview process and an application process. The application was very long, especially for a 15-year-old.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, once I got through all of that, I was selected and I got the call that I was accepted, and I was just waiting to hear where I was going to be placed.
Okay. I noticed that, well, we've had a couple of other folks who have visited that area of the world. Are the Nordic countries very well known for that and very welcoming for foreign exchange students?
Yes, they were very welcoming. In Denmark specifically too, they are very well known for traveling a lot and taking in a lot of students. So the way that it works too is that there's different districts. So like here in our district that we live in for Rotary, I think we took in maybe a dozen students within our district. But my district in Denmark, and think of Denmark is only a third the size or a fourth the size of Illinois.
Yeah,
they
small.
took in about like 30 to 40 students per district, and they had about 6 districts.
Really?
So they would take in
Wow.
like over 100, almost 200 students each year just in that one country.
Wow. So friendly and welcoming.
Yes. Yes.
So what you told me what first inspired you to get into the program? Just I guess just hearing about it and knowing a few people here and there. You had to take a test. How else did you have to prepare before going to your host country and so forth? Yeah.
So Rotary actually hosted a few different conferences for us to go to, just so we could learn about culture shock and learn how to be open and just welcoming to other people and other ideas. So that essentially we didn't go in there and not realize what we're getting ourselves into. Especially at 15, we think, it's, we're just going to go there, we're going to talk to new people and have all this fun and not realize there's different foods, that language can be very frustrating to learn.
They're not just like us.
Yes, exactly. That even too, like me having a family heritage that's like Swedish and everything and knowing a little bit about Scandinavian background, like it was still totally different to go there and actually experience it. So we had a lot of conferences on that specifically to learn how to deal with culture shock and homesickness and things like that.
So are you fluent in Danish now? Or were you? It's been a long time ago. So.
Yes, it was a long time ago. So I will admit, I occasionally use the Google Translate to talk to my former host families when I message them. But at the time when I finished my exchange, I would say that I was conversationally fluent. By no means was I going to be explaining any like crazy science theories and stuff in Danish, but I was pretty good about talking around the words that I didn't know too. And now I think it kind of comes back to me if I do read quite a bit of Danish, like with the different messages I send my host families. It's coming up with the words myself that I struggle with. So I'm pretty good at reading it. Speaking it, I haven't really done in a couple years. And then writing it is definitely a struggle. So
yeah. Well, most of us, I think, have that what would you say, speed bump to get over. But
Yes.
for some people, learning languages is just like learning English. And
Yes.
it's amazing to meet people that say they can talk 6 or 7 foreign languages. I took 2 years of Spanish and I still can't remember anything.
Exactly. There were some students too, even American students, that they picked up Danish so quickly, and I was so jealous of them because it was a very hard language to learn. It definitely helped though when I switched to a different host family that the younger girls didn't speak much English at all. So I was essentially learning Danish from children and preteens,
Sure.
and it was a lot easier to talk with them versus my adult host family members who spoke, I guess, just less childish English essentially, or had a bigger vocabulary. So
Yeah.
when I spoke at a kid's level, it was a little easier.
Sure. And what we always hear, and I don't know if this is true or not, you can probably tell me, is that people in foreign countries always know English better than we know their language.
Yes, that was
Is that,
definitely
in general,
true.
is that true, or is that true of just about everybody?
Yeah, and at least in my experience, there were definitely some demographics of people. So like in Denmark specifically, my older host families, like grandparents, not all of them spoke English perfectly, but they still spoke it very well, I'll say. Kind of in that way, like if somebody here takes Spanish for 4 years and they can maybe like talk a few words here and there, have certain conversations, that's kind of how they were with me in English. And as well as like the young kids. So any kids below the age of maybe like 7 or 8. They usually struggled a little more with English since they were just starting to learn it. But even my peers in high school, they spoke it so well and didn't realize it. So many of them were nervous about speaking English with me, and I even had one student at the end of my exchange say that he was like, I've always wanted to speak to you, I just didn't know if I could because I didn't want to embarrass myself with English. And at that point, I knew Danish pretty well, so we were speaking in Danish. And I told him, you could have, you speak English so well. Like, I've heard you in class, I've heard you with other people. Like, I would not have judged you at all. If anything, I was afraid you would judge my Danish because it's a lot worse than your English. So a lot of them, it was just more, I guess, a pride, embarrassment thing. But they do speak it really well since they learn it at a young age.
And there are always those idiomatic expressions too, that especially, well, if you're a young teen, probably more of that.
Yes.
As you get older, you're going to use probably the so-called King's English a little more.
Yeah.
But and the young ones are probably worried that they're not going to have all the right the right cool phrases.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny too, actually. A lot of the slang that they said in Danish were a lot of English words. So there were a lot of times, I won't say it on camera, but they did use a lot of English cuss words, I'll say, within their Danish. So.
All right. Well, hey, they're teenagers. What do you want?
Yes.
First impressions when you got there, and there had to be things that surprised you visually, I'm sure, but just other first impressions emotionally and like that.
Yeah, when I first got there, I guess even just walking off the plane, I had met up with my counselor there through the Rotary Club in Denmark, and she had brought the other exchange student who was there, kind of like a J-term exchange student, where in Australia they start in January and go through January. So she was from Australia and had been there for about, I want to say 7 or 8 months then at that point. So she was my senior, essentially, my little mentor of an exchange student,
Right.
Who picked me up, and we got in the car, and I was mostly talking with her. Her name was Anna, or is Anna, and she was just asking me about like how the plane ride was and everything. And my first impression, they said, "Oh, here, Tess, would you like to try this licorice candy?" And I said, "Sure, I like licorice," and I tried it. And so the first Danish food I ever tried was a little black licorice. And I'm just expecting it to taste like a Twizzler or something.
Sure.
It was salty. And I think that was their little way of, not necessarily hazing me, but they do that to a lot of the new exchange students because that's such a popular candy there. But it was a black, salty licorice. And one of the things I learned in my conferences before going is they said, for food, try everything once and don't ask for more later if you don't like it. But they said, eat it now, throw up later. And so
Whoa, wait a minute.
So they basically just told us, like, try the food. If you don't like it, just don't ask for more. And if you need to excuse yourself, but don't make a big deal out of it, since you don't want to, offend people.
Sure.
And just based off of like their foods. And so I ate it, and I must have made a face because they all kind of looked at me and were like, you don't have to eat it if you don't
Are
like
you sure
it.
this is licorice?
And Anna really liked them, actually. So
Yeah.
she said they tasted of kind of like Vegemite, which is also a salty thing in Australia.
Oh, right.
If you've ever heard
sure.
of it.
Very popular.
Yeah, like a salty spread. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I don't think I'll have another one. But yeah, it was very funny that the very first thing they did essentially was play a little joke on me. And I appreciated that. It kind of broke the ice a bit. But yeah, it was very great when I finally got settled in at my counselor's house. I got to miss the first few days of school just so I could get settled in, get all my paperwork done. I got to do a couple little Danish classes with her, essentially learning like counting 1 through 10 and how to introduce myself, my little elevator spiel, essentially. And the biggest thing that I noticed was the transportation. So there, I hardly ever used cars. We did use cars if we were going on long trips, but most of the time I biked. And so my counselor and I, when we were doing all of our paperwork, we biked to the library and the post office and everywhere within our town. And then when she told me how I would be going to school, I was taking the train to school. Okay. So that was my first big culture shock, was I'm not driving and I don't have access to a car. And
public transportation.
Yeah, we used
everywhere.
A lot of public transportation.
What are some of the other foods that are big over there? I got to think fish.
Yeah.
Fish, I've got to assume is got to be a very popular, various forms.
Yes,
Salted
we did.
Fish.
Actually, they do. Some of the fish that they do eat a lot of are like pickled herring.
There you go.
So
I love that stuff.
That was a big one. They have another just common type of food where it's just a rye bread, like very thin, just rye bread, and they choose a bunch of different like toppings for it. And so one of them actually is just like kind of like a tartar sauce and then a big old fish fillet. So we did have like a white fish fillet a lot too, and onion crisps, as well as one of the biggest culture shocks too was Christmas time. There's a traditional Christmas breakfast that they eat, and it's actually eel. And I had never had eel before.
Nor have I.
So of course, though, I'm adventurous with food. So I said, I'll try everything, like any food once at least too. And again, just won't ask for more. And so my host sisters that were with me, they knew I'd never tried it. And they said, oh, here, try this. And it was a white bread slice and scrambled eggs with this fish on top. And I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll try it. So I took a bite, and they could tell, like, my face went sour instantly, and I was like, what is this? And it wasn't necessarily the taste that was bad, it's just the fact that it was slimy to me, and it was a texture thing.
The consistency. Yeah.
Yes, and so I asked them, what is this? And they said, ale. And I was like, what's that? And they said, it's kind of like that snake fish. I said, an eel? And they said, yeah, an eel. That's what that is. And said, ale. I'm pretty sure that's what the word was in Danish too, because it sounded so similar. And I said, oh my goodness, like I did not know that you guys eat that here. And they told me, they're like, you don't have to finish it. And I said, I don't think I will. And I said, I'm not a fan. And I just kind of slid it away from me.
Wow.
But yeah, so lots of fish and a lot of pork too.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, they were one of the biggest pork exports in Europe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wouldn't have guessed that, but I suppose so. Why not?
Yeah.
Eel.
Yes.
Well, I like experimenting with new foods too, so I'll probably. The only thing I got once as a present and never did eat it was squid.
Okay.
In its own ink.
Oh, okay.
It was in a can, and the little squid arms were sticking out of the ink.
Oh man, I have had like a squid ink risotto before, and like that was really good. But I don't think it had actual squid in it too. So.
Yeah. Well, you talk about trying new things, and of course, that's what you're going to do when you're going to a new country. Are there any things that have really stuck with you from that first experience that you occasionally think about? Just reminisce about or dream about? Or
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I took away from it, but just the biggest things in general is having an open mind, and it gave me a better look on the world and understanding where people are coming from. I guess just kind of, like, I've always been empathetic, but it had that greater worldview after that where I can understand people's decision making, or I can at least see where people are coming from when they might have a different background than me, or different things like that. So I think a lot of it too is actually what led me into wanting to go into like nonprofit work now as a veterinarian. Just seeing, kind of like meeting people where they're at and compromising and learning more about people's backgrounds. So because a lot of the exchange, like, yes, of course, it's great to have the food and the history, but the biggest part for me was the people. So.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that they changed your point of view, but I'm guessing also they must have had, in addition to just telling you about themselves and their country, they must have had a lot of questions about America.
Yes, they did. A lot of people too, specifically just me speaking English and being my first language. A lot of the students there made it hard for me to learn Danish because they would often say, well, it makes more sense for us to practice our English with you than you to learn Danish, because you're not going to use Danish after this year. And I'd say, but of course I still want to. I'm here for a reason. And so it did make it pretty hard, but to learn the language, but it did make it easier to make friends, I guess, since I didn't have that language barrier like other students who maybe went to countries that don't speak English as well.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess too, just it kind of made me change the way a little bit that I think of the United States, not necessarily in a bad way, but just in a way of like, I just had this view of like, this is how things are done. You know, we are one of like, this is us. This is like, we're from one of the best countries in the world and like most well-established and things like that. And then I went to other countries and was like, you know, we aren't the end all be all. We aren't the only way to do things. Like, just because that's what I've always known doesn't mean there aren't other ways of viewing life. And that was a very big thing for me, especially too. And there are some cringy things I look back on where, just even like one of the big things with exchange students is that they take one of their flags with them to their country that they're being hosted in, and they'll take pictures with it. And I took that flag with me everywhere. Now I look back at pictures and I'm like, I have my flag with me in every picture. And I'm like, I just wish I had like taken pictures and just more so thought of it like, oh, I'm here in this new place. I just want to be here and not be like, look, I'm American here, you know?
Yeah, right.
So, but that was a big thing for all the exchange students. And I'm sure a lot of them probably look back too. And I have talked with my Australian friend as well, where she's like, man, that flag is in every picture. And but it was a good thing to show pride of where I'm from. But sometimes I wish I had kind of left that behind a little bit and just experienced where I was then.
Yeah,
you know,
transition.
Yeah, and
Gotta
truly
be slow, but you know.
Yeah.
It'll happen, you know, sooner or later. Well, you say you still keep in touch with host families and friends and so forth.
Yeah.
I guess a question: you were there for how long?
I was there for about 11 months.
Okay, almost a year. So, how did it feel when you got back?
It was different. It was very exciting at first. My parents picked me up from the airport, of course, with my brother, and they drove me home. It was that long 2-hour drive from Chicago after long flights. I can actually remember too in the car ride realizing how much I might have changed a little bit. I was a bit, I'll say, more blunt with the things I was saying. Okay. So again, I won't say on camera, but I had said a word in front of my parents that I maybe wouldn't have said before my exchange. And then I realized I was like, oh wait, no, I can't say that here anymore. And like, especially not in front of my parents, just a curse word.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Tess, what?
Yeah, they were like, but I can remember my mom was sitting in the back with me and I said the word and she went, just looked at me like, who is this lady? Like, this is not my daughter. But yeah, it was at first a lot of excitement. I had a coming back party for all my friends, and some of my friends even greeted me from like when I first got home with a welcome sign and everything. And
sure.
But going back to high school was actually a pretty rough transition for me.
Yeah.
Just because school was so different in Denmark. their high school, they kind of treat them a little more like community college, where they only have about 4 classes a day, and they have open campus, so we could leave, and they even have a different way of doing attendance where they couldn't miss more than, I believe it was like 4% of their classes without getting reprimanded. Versus here, you're in that school all day, every day. We had occasional like open campus, and so it was just a lot harder to not have that kind of freedom of like, oh, I can just go step outside when in between classes, or I can go get lunch somewhere else if I didn't bring a lunch that day, or things like that. So, and there were sometimes too that we didn't have classes a full schedule each day. So some classes didn't start until the afternoon, and I could sleep in, and so it was a lot more like college. So then transitioning back to high school, where it was a very strict schedule, it was
so over there rough. They in many ways treat you more like an adult.
Yes, they do. They definitely instill like more responsibilities on their kids from a young age. I can remember even being on the train going to school one day, and there was, I think he looked like he was maybe 8 years old. This little boy just standing there on the train by himself reading a newspaper. And I just looked at him and thought, that's so funny to me that this little boy just looks like he's an adult, like taking the train to school or to work, or, and reading the paper. And I joked with my friend, like, oh, he's probably reading the funnies. But even still, like, I would have never been able to take a train by myself at that age here.
How far a trip was it, just from the train station to where you had to go to school?
Yeah, it wasn't too far. I'm not sure kilometers or miles wise, but it was about a 30-minute trip, just with all the stops, since it was a heavy traffic day for all the students getting on the bus. But on the way back, say if I was going after school hours, it was only about, I think, 15 or 20 minutes on the train. So
more like a bullet train. Getting back. I understand, and you say this has been a problem or a challenge for a long time, I guess. Getting families to engage in this opportunity is not as easy as you might think it is. And it is, in talking to you, it sounds like a load of fun to me, and obviously a brand new experience. Why do you suppose you have to really sell people on the idea that it's this is something you should do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that play into it. Of course, there's just if people have the space in their house, for one, if they have a room available to an exchange student that they can give them for a year and make their own space, as well as the finances. I'm not sure exactly if the Rotary clubs like compensate. I'm sure they do something here and there at least, but they do take on a lot of that financial responsibility of feeding the student, paying for them to potentially go through like sports, any travel that they might need for conferences or meetings, things like that, as well as just the time commitment. Because of course too, if someone's coming here from a different country and they're wanting to have that experience of being an exchange student, you don't want it to where they're always just sitting in their room. And you would like to give them that experience of, say, taking them to Chicago, or taking them on your family vacation with you, or just kind of giving them that as much of an experience as they can get in the short time, because a year is long, but of course it still seems short in the end, like it's a short time of everything that they can do.
Not there, not in a different place. Is it allowable? Is it okay with the rules if say a retired couple hosts an exchange student?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, obviously here in America, sometimes some countries say we work too much, we work too long hours, in France, we're out and drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes. That's a stereotype, But so, if you're a working age parents, you might not have the time that you really would want or need to also entertain new people. But if you're a retired couple, you've got sometimes all the time in the world.
Yeah, we do have, I believe we have had some retired couples as well host students, and it's definitely a different type of experience versus a young couple who maybe has kids or something as well. So I think it would be best, honestly, if you kind of had a good array, I guess, of different experiences where you might have one couple that's older and one couple that's younger with kids, or even couples without kids, things like that. So they can kind of get that experience in what each different household is like. But that's an ideal world, and we
Yeah.
as long as people volunteer for it and are happy with it, that'd be great. But
Sure.
it's hard to find those people.
Okay, so if someone is watching this and wants to cut through the red tape, what do they do?
They contact the Rotary Club. So I specifically went through the Rock Falls Rotary Club, and I know there's a couple other Rotary Clubs as well, like in Sterling, that are also, I'm sure, looking for people if they're still doing their exchange programs. During my time when I went to Denmark, I know there were also 2 other girls from Sterling who had gone on exchange that same year. So there's at least 2 clubs in Sterling. But yeah, just contacting them, seeing what it's about in the first place to get more information is the best place to start. And at least from my experience, they've always been very good about just taking people and giving them their information and meeting them where they're at and letting them know honestly what the experience is like and if they think that person would be a good fit. And even my family at one point too thought about hosting while I was a senior and had just gotten back from my exchange. And I think it was just too much for my family at the time, as well as not having a great bedroom set up for the person. The room was very small, and I had just gotten back from Denmark, and so we had just a lot of things going on. And even then, we talked with the Rotary Club about hosting, and they just said, it might be better if you just focus on your transition back into the U.S. and then my transition going to college after that. So there were a lot of changes going around in our house, so it was hard to bring another big change in at the time.
Best thing to do is just keep asking questions, because there got to be hundreds of them,
Yes, exactly.
If you want to do it, you think you want to do it, just keep asking, because if you don't ask and something pops up, then you're going to say, well, I didn't know this was part of it. Well, we have to add on to the house.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, so it's definitely good just to ask, and there's no harm in, asking. And then if you realize, maybe it's not for me, that they're not going to hold that against you either. You won't be banned from Rotary Club or anything like that. So, yeah.
I suppose another good way might be, and I don't know what the Rotary Club rules are for joining, but might be a good way to get involved in it is just to join a Rotary Club. Yeah,
very true. A lot of the hosts are members of Rotary Club, including my hosts in Denmark were. So.
Okay, Tess, it's been enlightening.
Yeah, it's been great to meet you.
And sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes, it was great. It's a very fun time. Highly recommend to any high school students as well as to potential host families.
All right. So. You want to give out a phone number for somebody who would just like to talk to you about it? Or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can do that. My phone number is 815-631-4252.
Okay.
Still got my 815 code.
Yeah, there you go.
Even though I don't live here, but
and any online presence people could ask questions on of you.
I don't have necessarily an online presence, just my Facebook. Yeah, if somebody wants to reach out on Facebook, you can always send a friend request or send a message. And I'm not on it super often, but occasionally I'll see it. So and eventually I will respond.
There's lots of different ways to spell Schaefer, so spell it your way.
Yeah, it's Schaefer.
First name, Tess.
Yes, Tess. Tess.
Okay. Well, thanks again. Thanks for coming up. And
especially
if there's so much time.
It's been crazy that it's
I thought maybe it'd be
years.
A challenge for you, but you sound like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, I do think about it a lot. So there's a lot of things I forget, but there's a lot of things I can't forget too.
Yeah, so. The important stuff sticks with you.
Yeah.
So, all right. Tess Schaefer has been our guest on Along the Rock. And I'd like to thank her again for coming up and entertaining us with her experiences. Also like to thank our crew for making this possible. I'm Mark Morris, been your host, and hope you can join us next time and all the times thereafter along the road.